Welcome to Production Value Matters, the business event podcast, brought to you by Byrne Production Services. Here, we explore the different ways business events can bring value to your organization, the latest technological advances in the event space, as well as providing you with actionable strategies to make a business event a success. Let's create an exceptional event experience.
Welcome to another episode of Production Value Matters, the business events podcast. Today, I'm joined by Victoria Matey, founder of Matey Events and fellow podcaster. She's the host of her own show, What If I Told You? Events Psychology. Her unique approach to events through understanding psychology, behavioral science, and linguistics has made her a popular name in our industry. I'm really looking forward to hearing her views on the psychology of events. Victoria, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So how did you get to where you are today? Can you talk to me about your career so far?
Absolutely. Well, I've been an event planner for many years, and I ran business events, conferences, and workshops. And at some point, I started my consultancy, and it wasn't then when I started focusing on event psychology. So it came to me as an insight after some time, and that was the result of my continuous passion for psychology and for human behavior and mind. Because ever since I studied at my first university, where I studied psychology as well, I was interested in learning more about how people work. And so when I switched to events, I didn't really pay that much attention to the psychology of it. But later on, it came as an insight, as I said, and I started focusing specifically on this connection between events and psychology. And, this is what led me here. And now this 100% focus of my work.
And so in its simplest form, what is event psychology and why do you find it so important as a factor to consider?
Right. Well, event psychology is an application of research findings from behavioral science, neuroscience, psychology to event planning, to event design, and event marketing. And so this is the shortest answer about what it is. And it is an important thing because, we work with people. We are people. We are all humans and everybody has a brain. So we need to understand, we talk a lot about how things work, in logistics or in marketing or in any other aspects, but we don't really talk that much about how people work. And this should be the key focus for us, because if we don't know how to engage people, if we don't know how different things play out on a brain level, then we are missing out on the core things.
Absolutely. And so how can an understanding of event psychology help event planners create more engaging and an effective event?
Like I said, experiences, in my view, start first and foremost in people's minds, right? So when you make a decision to attend an event, what motivates you? What factors impact your choice? What, in that email invite, tip the scale in favor of this event and not that event, right? What drives sales? Can you nudge people to register early, to buy that ticket, right? Or you're at the event. What makes you remember more? What kind of things influence your perception, influences how you perceive the event and how you feel about it, right? And how come that some events, same location, same venue, even same audience, feel exciting and comfortable, and others may feel boring and exhausting. And talking about exhausting, what things affect how quickly we get tired, or after the event, what makes you share a moment or recommend the event to a colleague of yours? Why do you not fill the survey, right? Um, it's all about those dozens, hundreds of choices and decisions and hidden factors and mechanisms that govern us. And understanding what exactly helps and what exactly hinders engagement makes the job of an event planner or an event marketer easier and the events more effective.
And so, it's interesting that you say that the tired factor, being light from our lighting design and production design point of view, we're taught very early about the use of brightness and color and how that
Mhm.
affects people's mood. So, I'd love to get your insight on that. But the one thing that I want to chat about is the importance of understanding different personality types and how it relates to that event psychology. As you just mentioned, there are how different people are affected by the same content or the same environmental design needs to be factored in. So is it really difficult to cater for every different type of personality at an event? So is there a middle ground that would make everybody happy, do you think?
Well, there are things that are common for all of us, regardless, I would say. I mean, of course, each of us is a unique and has is a unique person and has their own unique personality features. But at the same time, we do have some things that we can say are common for all of us, right? And how, for example, how things in this space or how things um, uh, in the event environment affect us, we can sort of break it down into specific partners and understand what kind of things we can do to make that environment more comfortable, for example, for all the people, right? And of course, there will be some nuances, there will be some differences between different people, right? But at the same time, like I said, there are certain things that can be determined. Um, for example, how we, like you said, how we perceive colors or how we perceive different scents or how we react to music. It's all universal. And for example, the effect of music is a universal thing. You may have different preferences for music genres, right? But it still affects you. It still has its powerful impact on you, right? And on me. We might have different preferences in music styles or artists, right? But it still affects us in a way that it will, for example, if you use a signature tune for the event, right, then it will become a powerful moment of memorability because both you and I will remember that tune uh, music has this power on a brain level. So that's how I would explain that.
And so can you give me a specific example of how you've used event psychology to enhance an attendee experience at an event?
Yes, I mean, there are so many things. We talk a lot about, say, learning outcomes, right? And if you have a conference and you have a packed agenda, which used to be a standard in the industry, and now we are kind of going away from that standard, thankfully. But I would say there is still a lot to do in this sense, and uh, understanding how what kind of factors affect learning experience at the event is important. Again, from the behavioral science perspective, neuroscience perspective. So in practice, it means understanding that you shouldn't actually pack the agenda because that makes your learning outcomes for your audience worse. So it doesn't help. You may think that logically, you would think that the more content, the better, but in fact, it's the other way around, right? So you need to have more breaks and you need to have more balanced agenda. So this is one of the common examples. Another example that I would mention is surveys. So when you got to get the feedback from your audience, what most organizers do, they actually ask people about their experiences, which is fine, but to some extent, what I notice in the industry that we have this over reliance on surveys. And this is a problem because when people reply, they are impacted by a lot of cognitive biases, subconscious biases that we are not aware of. And so that affects their responses. So if you rely on surveys 100%, most likely you will not get the most reliable answers that you can use in outlining your future event strategy and design. And so what I suggest we use in addition to surveys is observation. And that comes again from understanding how people behave and actually noticing different patterns, behavioral patterns, and using that as an additional insight for the event strategy and design.
So in your experience, what are some key factors that contribute to the success of an event from a psychological perspective? Do you balance the need for visually appealing events with those principles of event psychology, and how do you sort of approach that?
So I think there are several things here. One of the key factors that I would mention here is how simple making a decision that is relevant, that is related to the event journey is. So if you have a registration form that an attendee would need 15 minutes to complete, that's something that makes their experience worse and actually affects their decision making. So if they have imagine that they have a similar event and with all other equal factors, they just have this difference: short registration form or a long registration form. Obviously, if it's simpler for them to go and fill out the shorter registration form, they're more likely to do that. And so you need to audit every step of the attendee journey and see how simple every step that you want them to make is. So this is one of the key factors. Making things simple will affect how people feel about your event and how quickly they react, how quickly they respond, how quickly they take action. Right. So this is one thing. Another thing that I wanted to mention is emotional connection. And I remember the other day, Tamara Beck, who is the CEO of Gleaning, posted about the difference between festivals and business events, and we discussed how, in my opinion, one key difference between those types of events is an emotional connection, right? When we go to a concert or to a festival, the level of emotional connection that we feel to people around us, to people on stage is phenomenal, right? And so this is something that we need to think about more and more seriously for business events. And we just started this discussion, actually. So business events were always sort of deprived of the fact that, they should be emotional as well. Why not? It's still humans who are meeting together, right? And they still have the same aspirations, the same motivations, the same desires. They want to connect. They want to feel like they belong. They want to have some positive emotions, and not just go neutral and do business and be serious, right? They want to feel different kinds of emotions as well. So I think this is something that we need to really nail in business events. I would say emotions are glue for memories and connections. So we do need to focus on that specific aspect. And one more thing here, one of the key factors that I would mention is sensory engagement. And I'm sure you can relate because this is one of your areas of expertise, right? And I think from the psychological perspective, what fascinates me is how many things um, go unnoticed, but actually impact our experiences in a big way. And for example, some time ago, I posted about the research where listening to a speaker via headphones made them look smarter, warmer, and attendees liked them more than when they were listening them just via speakers. So this is just a little tweak.
That's a really interesting point. I'm going to bring that to my next event, just because
Yeah.
we always so concentrate on large PAs and we certainly have done the quote unquote silent disco headsets before, and
Mhm.
it's interesting that there's an apprehension about that because they think it will feel isolating. But that's interesting that statistic or that piece of data says that there's more emotional connection to the speaker, which
Absolutely.
I think that's fascinating. And on
It is.
the emotional side, you reminded me of a statistic that came out from a sponsorship marketing conference that we went to recently, and one of the speakers got up and said and pointed out that all decisions are made. 99% of decisions are made on an emotional basis, no matter what. And
Mm.
went through some statistics that supported that. But that sort of leans into what you're saying about B2B events. You're right that they are not always trying to tap on emotion. They are trying to tap on facts and numbers and figures and
Yes.
try and sort of one might even say a sterilized sort of positioning. And there is a great opportunity for B2B brands and business focused events to tap into those emotions
Right.
to get that buy-in from their audiences. So I think that's very wise.
Absolutely. No, I think this is something that I totally support. And what happens, I think, if when we make a decision, we are driven by emotions, but then we post rationalize it, because it comes to our conscious, right? And when it comes to emotions, I just wanted to mention this as well. I posted about the feelings wheel some time ago, and it's a wheel that breaks down, like, I don't know, dozens of emotions, and it is fascinating to see how many emotions humans can feel. But also, or the reason why I posted about it was that it kind of helps us recognize um, that we should be very precise when we talk about emotions, what kind of emotions we want to evoke. So I think one thing is that we need to ask the question, what emotions do we want our attendees to feel first? But also, we should go further after that and actually um, ask what kind of emotions, what exact emotions we want them to feel. Because if we say we want to make them happy, that's kind of fine, but that's just the basic, very basic level. And then you should go further and say, well, it's not just happy, but maybe playful or interesting or peaceful or optimistic, right? And then if you go even further, then you would think about being, we want them to feel curious, respected, um, courageous, creative. And so when you go deeper, you are able to pinpoint the exact emotion that you are targeting, right? And then this in turn will make it easier for you to find the right tools to actually achieve your goal. So yeah, I think this is very important aspect of the event design and marketing that we need to work harder on.
Yeah, I feel like there's got to be some very specific German word for the happiness you feel in a certain situation.
Mm.
There's so many very interesting sort of Germanic words that very specifically describe a feeling you get when a thing happens. And we're speaking in English today, and I feel like that is perhaps limiting the language that is specific to those very specific types of happiness that you're talking about, or
Yeah.
those types of sub emotions. And so I think maybe our language has to change a little bit there. So we've just identified that we're trying to specifically create this uber happiness, or this very specific happiness, or desired emotional connection and reaction. So do you have any sort of practical advice on event environmental and atmospheric design, and what has or has not worked in the past?
Mm. Right. Well, it's interesting because I think research provides us with a lot of insights about how we can create a more um, comfortable environment, an environment that is more conducive to learning, for example. Right. So it's all about using the um, right colors, using the right lights, reducing the level of noise, for example. And it's not only for neurodivergent attendees, but for all of us, because again, understanding how we learn will help you recognize that, learn and connect. And this will help you recognize that, for example, having a loud music definitely does not help people connect, because it's just impossible to network, or shall I say, just to communicate, right, with each other when you have loud sounds going on. And so I think we still have those basic mistakes made quite often at business events. And so we need to fix the basic mistakes first. But also, I feel like latest research provides us with a lot of more nuanced insights. For example, there is a research that says that curvy shapes in furniture, for example, in the environment, right, they make people feel more comfortable. And so just this particular tweak or change that you can pretty easily do will help people subconsciously feel more comfortable once they enter the venue, once they enter the room. So I think that kind of insight can be very effective for event planners, because again, it doesn't require too much effort, but knowing and understanding where you can be intentional about the environment design or spatial design, for example, and what kind of things you can easily fix to get people feel better, feel more comfortable, get more learning, remember more, get more engaged. This is something that event psychology can be used for.
Yeah, you've used the word comfort quite a lot in that, and I wonder if that's something that needs to evolve in event design. That the focus needs to be on creating that comfortable environment. Whether or not that is sort of softer seating, or subdued, like more sort of balanced lighting and balanced audio. But I do like that idea of creating a comfortable environment that people, I think that pushes up the enjoyment factor and the desire to be in the room. I really like how you phrase that.
Yes, I think comfort is, it's interesting that you notice that. I kind of didn't notice it myself, but I guess it's because being comfortable at an event is an important thing, is an important factor, because you enter the room full of strangers, right? Even if you have attended the event before, it still feels like you're on your own. And you need the certain level of comfort that this can be provided with various tools, right? From shape of the furniture to format of the session to um, the amount of information that organizers provided you with, right? So level of comfort can be spread out, and sort of manifested in different things. But I guess at the end of the day, it matters how comfortable I as an attendee feel, because that again will influence how I learn, how I communicate and interact with other people, and how I feel about the event when it's over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, looking to a little bit of the future, how do you envision event psychology evolving in the future of event design? Especially with younger professionals coming into the space. Mental health is something that's stereotypically is more valued and considered for younger generations than older. So, how can we encourage the older generations to come up to this trend? And do you see that trend continuing in newer generations in this industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you that I've started doing this more than 7 years ago, almost 10 years ago by now. And there is a tremendous difference in how event community talks about event psychology and behavioral insights now versus, I don't know, 5 years ago. So at that point in time, back 5 years ago, it was really difficult to um, convince people how important this specific area of knowledge is. But now, and I think to some extent, pandemic played a role, because we were forced to do things differently, and a lot of organizers realized that old ways don't work. So I think that played a role, like I said, but also generally as a community, I think we realized that we need to um, understand how people work, like I said in the very beginning, because this is more effective approach to designing events. And I know that younger people, younger event professionals pay more attention to this. And I know that for sure, because I have a couple of projects with universities and they are working to implement modules on event psychology. So this is coming. It's not as fast process as I would like it to be, but still it's something that makes it not just a trend. It's something that will be with us in the events community forever.
So, we usually like to wrap up these episodes with a practical tip to our listeners on how they can implement some of the things that we talked about. And one of the things I was hoping to get your guidance on is something you said earlier about how we're measuring events post event, that we're relying a little bit heavily on surveys, and you had mentioned about observation, and which I
Mhm.
think is an amazing point. And so, what practical ways can an event planner listening to this episode think about integrating that observational data and that anecdotal observation into their post event strategy?
So, like I said, first of all, you shouldn't rely on on only one piece of information or one way of measuring um, uh, feedback at your event. So it should be surveys, it should be observation, it should be focus groups, talking to people, and obviously using AI and different other technologies that we have at our disposal at the moment. But the reason why I place bigger focus on observation is that it's a way to see or to get unbiased data. And we assume that when we ask questions, people are rational and they make perfectly logical decisions and they give us perfectly logical answers. But we now know that they aren't and they don't. So watching what people actually do will get you one step closer to fixing your event issues, right? And discovering some new out-of-the-box solutions. So basically, you need to get observation on your plan and do it every time that you have an event. You need to have this implemented as another way of collecting feedback about your event. And it can be, like a secret attendee element. It can be a member of your team if they are trained. It can be someone with an expertise in qualitative interviews and getting qualitative feedback. So there might be different ways depending on where you are with your event, what kind of industry it is, what kind of audience it is. So there might be some nuances and details, but basically there are ways of implementing it one way or another that will give you much more insights, true insights, I would say.
I love that idea of like the secret attendee.
Yes.
So somebody sort of walking around and sort of leaning on the bar, talking to the other attendee about like, hey, how you like this event, which can give you some really inside track observational data that, as you said, in a post-event survey, people, we again assume that rational decisions are being made when answering those questions, but they're really quite emotional. And if you want to really get in touch with that emotional, visceral reaction that somebody's having to your event and your design, having that secret shopper, as it were, in the space is a great way of doing it. I think that's a brilliant insight. Thank you very much, Victoria, for joining us on the Business Events podcast. It was amazing to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Production Value Matters, the Business Event Podcast, is brought to you by Byrne Production Services. To find out more about Byrne Production Services and how putting on events can drive value for your business, visit byrneproductionservices.com. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And on behalf of the team here at Production Value Matters, thank you so much for listening.